You know, when Leica came out with the SL3, it was a very intriguing camera. Beautiful body design, powerful 60 megapixel sensor, but it also showed that Leica's a little bit out of touch when it comes to value for the dollar, and it was overshadowed by lots of other great full-frame mirrorless cameras. But now they followed up with the Leica SL3-S. This has a 24 megapixel sensor, and Leica says this is their fastest focusing and shooting camera so far. But is this camera still going to be out of touch? Is it still going to be terrible value for the dollar, or is it actually worth looking at? I'm Chris Niccolls, this is PetaPixel. Let's find out if the Leica SL3-S is reasonable or totally ridiculous. So before we get deep into our review, here's some things that you might not know about KEH.com. Did you know that KEH has been around as long as I have? Since 1979, they have been the experts on pre-owned camera gear. Did you know that KEH also does repairs? So if you've got gear that's fallen on hard times and you want it to work like new, KEH can help you out. Did you know that KEH is owned and operated by people that love photography as much as you do? And they have extensive articles that you can check out on photographic tips or the best gear to buy, the best lenses to look at. There's some really good information there. Did you also know that KEH.com sells brand new products? It's not just pre-owned gear. You can get filters, tripods, cases, bags, camera gear, anything you're looking for, they have it. And did you also know that buying pre-owned gear is great for the planet? Keeping perfectly capable camera gear out of the landfills and reusing stuff that can be used for many generations still has tons of life left in it. And did you know that KEH.com is PetaPixel's official pre-owned camera gear partner? All right, let's get back to the review. So the body on the Leica SL3-S is basically unchanged from Leica SL3, and I really recommend you watch our review of that particular camera to get some more in-depth information about how this camera handles and stuff. But I will give you guys a brief overview of what I like and don't like. I mean, they are beautifully designed bodies. Leica is one of the few companies that gives you an actual IP rating of 54. So as expensive as a camera as it is, you can actually take it into some pretty rough environments and be sure that it will survive. I like the menus, very easy to navigate. I like the new Leicanography. It's cutesy and it works. Basically nice controls. Love the customization to be able to just hold down a button and then change what function it does. It's all really smart. We still have the questionable on-off button. It's fine, it's weird, but you get used to it. And I do wish there was a dedicated AF on button rather than just pressing the center of the joystick controller on the back. But overall, this camera's got a really nice control structure to it. And all the peripherals are the same too. I mean, you got full HDMI port, mic jack, headphone jack, USB-C, all covered by these rubber doors, which will absolutely seal them very well, but I still do find it sometimes questionable and annoying to try to get everything closed in again. I prefer just a quick latch door like we have here for the memory cards. Dual card format, one UHS 2-speed SD card slot, and then a CF Express Type B slot. And that's important because, you know, things like the Panasonic S5 II platform, which are very similar to this in a lot of ways, don't give you that extra card speed, and that will factor into video controls. We actually get a beautiful EVF here. It's the same from the SL3, 5.76 million dot EVF, and a nice touchscreen on the back, but it only tilts vertically. It doesn't give you that swing out option, which for a camera that might have better video capabilities than the higher megapixel SL3 could really have benefited from a swing out screen. I mean, it's the same battery on the button, like basically the same way. I mean, everything is basically the same. You should just go watch the other video. But one thing that has changed physically, well, look, this used to be a very prominent white Leica badge. Now it is blacked out. That's cool. Nothing you couldn't do with a Sharpie though, if you really wanted to. And well, the sensor, let's talk about that next. Okay, so we have a 24 megapixel full frame sensor in this camera, and it's a very similar sensor to what we see in the Leica SL2S or you know, the Sony a7 III or even the Panasonic S5 II. And just like the Panasonic S5 II, it now does have phase detect autofocus. I mean, that is a nice benefit because really that's something Panasonic really needed to change, and they did. And it's nice to see that we're now also getting it in the Leica bodies. But at the same time, this sensor is not particularly fast scanning. It's not stacked in any way, shape, or form. And I really think it should be at this price point. But at least I think why Leica is now making this 24 megapixel version with phase detect is because they're trying to aim the SL3-S more at journalists, people shooting sports, maybe action. And I will say, this sensor is not fast scanning, but granted, it's faster scanning than the SL3's 60 megapixel sensor, but that's not a very high bar to beat. Another thing that I think really makes this aimed squarely at journalists is the fact that it now has content authenticity into it. And this is interesting because the SL3 did not have this. We were really surprised by that. So you probably noticed, again, we are out shooting here in the winter time in Alberta, but it's surprising how many like beautiful animals are around here. Like I've been hearing, so that's actually a mallard, very common bird, mallard. That's really nice. And then what else do we hear around here? It's an interesting bird. That's a common merganser. I mean, like there's so much wetland around here, even though it's frozen. And then I think, I was listening very carefully, I think there's a like a wood duck around here. Wood duck? Let's do it. Yeah, there's wood duck, yeah. I'm not gonna get any photos of these birds, don't ask why, it doesn't matter. But yeah, just teeming with life. Okay, so let's talk about burst rates here. Now, when compared to the original SL3, this is a substantial improvement because the SL3 was limited to 4 frames per second shooting with autofocus in 14-bit mode. You could push it to 5 frames per second if you went down to 12-bit mode, and then up to 15 frames per second autofocus lock 12-bit. So now what the SL3-S can do, given its smaller megapixel sensor, is it can go up to 7 frames per second. That's with autofocus mechanical shutter mode, but it does drop to 12-bit. You can go 5 frames per second with autofocus at 14-bit. However, the electronic shutter mode is quite a bit faster. We can now go 30 frames per second maximum at 12-bit with autofocus. Do keep in mind though that this is very similar to what we see on the Panasonic S5 II. That can actually go to 9 frames per second mechanical, 30 frames per second max. And again, when you're in that electronic shutter mode, this is not the fastest reading out sensor, so you do get a little bit of rolling shutter if you move the camera around. So we were going to use coyotes for our autofocusing test, but this sign lied to us. So luckily I have something even faster, a middle-aged Jordan. Okay, so let's get to our famous Jordan running autofocusing test. And I do want to preface this with 3 statements. First off, Leica has said we can test the autofocus on this camera, but it is still in a pre-production phase. Keep that in mind. Number 2, this is going to be a very tough test because I'm shooting Jordan with a Sigma 500mm f5.6. That is very challenging. The third thing I want to mention is this has the exact same autofocusing algorithms and phase detect system as the original SL3, but this is a faster reading sensor than that 60 megapixel sensor, and that is why Leica is saying this is their best autofocusing camera to date. Okay, so looking at the majestic Jordan. So first I shot at the maximum 7 frame per second mechanical burst mode here with autofocus. You know, it's eye and phase detect, and it was giving me those indicators the entire time. And so shooting it with a mechanical shutter, I would say not bad results, but not great. Like every 5th or 6th frame, it just seems like it would just pop out a little bit and then catch on to him again. It never did anything egregious like go way off of him or anything like that. So it was decent performance given the long telephoto range of the lens. So then I went to electronic shutter mode, and I thought, why not do a 30 FPS burst? First off, this has a very deep buffer. I mean, I'm getting it to shoot like 3 or 4 seconds before slowing down. That's quite nice. So we're getting lots of frames to choose from. At 30 frames per second, I would say very minimal lag in the EVF. I was able to follow him really smoothly with 0 blackout. That's really nice. But again, our performance is a little bit rough. You know, in this case at 30 frames per second, it would again go out every 5th or 6th frame, and again it'd be out for a few frames because it's shooting so quickly, and then it would catch in again. So we're not getting ideal performance here. I never got ideal performance on the original SL3 either. Okay, so is this Leica's fastest full frame camera on the market? Yes, absolutely, sure, but that wasn't a very high bar to jump over in the first place. And frankly, let's remember as well also that Leica and Panasonic are sharing a lot of autofocusing technology, and Panasonic's autofocusing isn't really state-of-the-art either as far as tracking moving subjects and doing wildlife. So you absolutely can shoot some journalism and some sports and action with this. I mean, it's certainly a capable camera, but I do feel like there's other brands that do a way better job at autofocusing and burst rates for way less money. So just like the SL3, this does have IBIS, the same unit, does give us nice stability. It also unlocks a feature that the Leica SL3 doesn't have, and that's the ability to use handheld high res. So I can get a 96 megapixel image, very similar to what we see out of the Panasonic cameras, but it does give me the option of increasing the resolution if I need it for still life objects. Okay. So if we're sticking to L-mount, we take a look at something like the Panasonic S5-2X, which is a very video-centric camera, has their latest autofocusing capabilities, 24 megapixel sensor. Why would you get the SL3-S instead? I mean, look, the S5-2X is going to give you basically the same image quality because it's got a very similar sensor, effectively the same autofocus performance, actually slightly better mechanical shooting burst rate. The S5-2X is also less than half the price of this camera. I mean, the Panasonic S5-2X, you can put Leica optics in front of that. It's all L-mount alliance if you want to. You can even use a lot of the Leica looks that are built into the Panasonic cameras, like the Leica monochrome modes and stuff like that. But there are some benefits here. So this does have that higher 5.76 million EVF over the 3.69 million EVF on the Panasonics. Not a huge deal, but it is an important thing. Content authenticity, I think that's a fantastic thing. I think all cameras should have it. I wish Panasonic put that on their bodies. This also has the CF Express Type B card, so, better buffer, quicker buffer clearance on that, and it also does give us some benefits when it comes to video capabilities. I mean, look, the Panasonic S5-2X is a very powerful video camera, but Leica has certainly stepped up this game here with the SL3-S. First off, both cameras can shoot 4K full width, up to 30 frames per second, 4K 60 if you're okay with the crop. Both cameras can also shoot open gate recording up to 6K, so that's a really nice advantage. The main difference, though, is because the Leica's got that CF Express Type B card, the Leica SL3-S can shoot internal ProRes, whereas the Panasonic S5-2X can record ProRes to an external SSD. We always enjoy shooting video on Leicas. They've actually made some real inroads to improving the capability of their hybrid cameras, and that's great stuff. I mean, is the convenience factor, though, of not having to use an external SSD for ProRes really worth thousands of dollars? I don't know about that one. I mean, I'll leave that up to you, because the fact of the matter is, if you're going to buy a Leica, you already know who you are. I mean, this is the target audience, and it's very small. But in the end, I'm just still left with the same issue that I always have with Leica SL cameras. I mean, you look at the Q, you look at the M series, these are unique products that nobody else really touches, and so to some degree that does justify the exorbitant prices, but SLs are just mirrorless full-frame cameras with a lot of the same technology that we see in other brands. And so from a fiscal standpoint, I just don't feel like the SL cameras make any sense at all. I mean, look, for the same amount of money, you can get any other camera with a stack sensor, way better autofocus, faster burst rates, no rolling shutter, similar rugged capabilities. And then you also look at the fact that the stack sensor gives you way better video capabilities. So you're also going to get a hybrid product which is more advanced than this. And that's something that's, I think, for a long time anyways, going to hold back the Leica SL series. As far as optics go, L-mount Alliance gives you tons of great choices, and you don't even have to go to the Leica optics to really get good glass. Sigma, for example, are really owning that market. They've got their whole lineup for this mount. So why buy an SL3-S? You really got to love the design. You really got to love the brand. You really just got to love the fact that this experience is something you want to pay for. But for most people on the planet, it just doesn't make any sense. And my final closing thought is this. I mean, when I reviewed the SL3, I had the same feeling. I don't feel like it made any sense. It was terrible value for the dollar, but at least we were getting that 60 megapixel sensor, which is not surpassed when it comes to a full frame sensor. But here we've got a 24 megapixel sensor that is very similar to what the original Leica SL had, and you've got so many other choices, and then at the price range you get so many better choices. So it just to me makes even less sense than even the impractical SL3. But feel free to disagree with me. Leave that in the comments below. Let us know what you think about this latest product from Leica, or any other thoughts you have. We love to talk about those on the PetaPixel podcast, which you can listen to on all your favorite podcasting apps, or, even on this channel. Just watch it. I think that's the best experience to have for it. As well, if you are going to go to PetaPixel.com to read our excellent articles from so many great writers, why not consider getting a PetaPixel Pro membership? It's just $3 a month or $30 a year, and then you can enjoy the website ads-free. You also get other nice benefits like 25% off on the merch store, and even bonus discounts if you go to the Moment store and buy stuff from them. So regardless, you're going to get that money back somehow. So it's definitely worth doing it. We'd appreciate the support. As always, we appreciate you guys watching PetaPixel. We'll see you shortly on this channel with more content soon.